Hey guys, hope things are well with you, and on this video I'm going to be dipping my toe into a brand new streaming series, and this is going to be episode 1 of the first season of Tales from the Loop, and the episode is simply called Loop. So this is the new Amazon Prime science fiction series, kind of like an anthology in a way. Not really in the traditional sense, but because I think each story is kind of linked to the same thing, which is the loop of the title. But it is in the sense that each story is, I think, going to be a standalone. So there's this thing called the loop, which is this like mysterious invention which is based underground, and in each episode it looks like you're gonna have a different set of characters interact with it, and it's going to show the effects on those different characters. So although each story will be about the loop, you will have different characters. I think that's the way it's going to work out. Now I will say each episode is close to an hour, which is interesting. This first one was 54 minutes. And there's 8 episodes in the first season. All 8 are up now on Amazon Prime, so you can check it all out if you wish. And pretty big cast. Certainly the adults in this episode quite well known. You've got Rebecca Hall. You've got Jonathan Pryce, recently nominated for an Oscar for The Two Popes. Also, I noticed Paul Snider in there in a small role. People know him from various things. He was in Parks and Recreation. He's been in a lot of like indie style films, a few like comedies. So yeah, so quite a familiar like adult cast in this episode anyway. Not so much with the kids, and I got the impression it was trying to tap into some of like the Stranger Things type magic, but with a more art house sort of vibe as well. Certainly a lot more slow and methodical in the direction and the pacing. But the storyline is basically that it follows this young gal, Loretta, in this small, like, isolated sort of town, and her mother is like involved in the experiments with the loop, or there's a connection to that which is revealed. And near the beginning of the episode, Loretta walks in on her mother having an argument with a man, and this sort of scares Loretta, so she leaves the house. But when she's talking to her mum later, her mum kind of says then she hints and it's to do with the loop, and that she borrowed like this particular object off the guy that she just needs to do an experiment on, and says then he'll have it back when the experiment's done. So the impression is that the fight is over the mother wanting to get into the loop and to like experiment with it. But she kind of says to Loretta, wouldn't it be great if one day we could work out the loop? So it's meant to be like this really prestigious kind of thing to get into this thing. Very exclusive. But then one day mysteriously the mother disappears, and the episode is about Loretta trying to find her, and slowly things being revealed by the loop, or about the loop, and about what happened to the mother. So the episode actually opens with Jonathan Pryce's character, who's I think is maybe going to be like the narrator of all the episodes, the kind of introduction guy. So he's there. He's obviously behind the loop, and he kind of gives the setup for the series. So certainly, he's one of those. He's got a very distinct kind of dramatic voice, and he's one of these character actors who is just has this malevolence about him, and very good at playing just these straight sort of parts where there's just a mystique to them. There's certainly a sinister air to him in this episode, but at the same time, he could just be this regular sort of guy who's kind of just doing what he thinks is best. But he does pop up a couple more times in the episode. But yeah, he kind of comes across as this kind of mad type professor who like wields a lot of power. But yeah, also there's kind of mystique behind his character, as I said. So before I get into some spoilers, I'll just give my overall thoughts on the episode, and I quite liked it. Now I think there are some caveats in there, and they're the sort of things which, before I see more episodes, it's hard to really say. And I think some of the potential pitfalls are things that I can see in this episode, but because it's a first episode and because I generally liked it outside of those things, it's a weird thing to say, but in a way I sort of noticed that they're things that could become frustrating later on, but they're not really at the moment because it's a first episode, so you're only like applying them to this one episode. And the reason why I'm mostly positive about the first episode is because it was really well directed. It had a real like visual flair and atmosphere, some really subtle like camera work. I think also like just the sense of mystery and the fact that this is quite an intriguing setup. Now a lot of like these enigma type plots, I think they can always go either way. I think certainly at the beginning it seems, okay, this has potential. There's a lot they could do here. But also there's been plenty of examples of this sort of thing with this promising setup, and then they've kind of bungled it, and yeah, you just look back and think, they really screwed the pooch on that one. So yeah, at this stage it's kind of hard to say, but I think because of the direction and the quality of the cast mostly, especially with the adult actors, I thought the girl playing Loretta was actually good. I mean, not amazing maybe, but I thought she came across as quite natural. But yeah, I'll just mention some of the stuff. I mean, one is with that, I think potentially, I mean, at this point, we don't really know if these characters are going to appear in any more of the episodes, because reading the write-up for the next story, it seems like a separate story. But I guess it's possible as the season goes on, you might have like characters and stories like overlapping. I'm not really sure. It would be a shame actually if Rebecca Hall was only in one episode, because she's an actress I really like. I think she's very underrated actually, but we'll see about that. But I think, as I said, I think this does feel a little bit more like more art house, like Stranger Things, and I think for that to work is you do need a bit of a light touch at times, and you do need them to make the kids maybe more engaging. I think a lot of what's carrying this first episode is the direction, the mood, and the fact that obviously there is like a mystery at its heart, which is still to be like unravelled. But in terms of the kids at the moment, yeah, I didn't really feel they were that strong as characters. And obviously, as I said, this could be a standalone story. They might not come back to them, but in which case, I guess that's maybe a slight weak spot in the story, because I think the kids weren't really given that much to do. I think it was kind of very one note, very like her being frustrated, her being confused, searching for answers. And I thought the actress was quite good, but yeah, I think it was played a bit as just kind of mad, frustrated sort of kids, because she also meets this other kid in the wood about her age, and she meets him and he's throwing stuff at like this robot which we've seen previously, and they kind of form a bond sort of thing, and he helps her try to find her mother. So, and there's a scene later on when they go to his mother's house, played by Rebecca Hall, and she's like having like a heated argument with the Jonathan Pryce character, who we find out is the father of her husband, Paul Schneider. And that's when she kind of says, "Not now, we're busy," sort of thing. So they then go up to the room, and there's another brother, like a slightly older brother, and they start talking to him about, Loretta's looking for her mother. And they start looking at the research of the Rebecca Hall character. But again, I got a bit of a Stranger Things vibe, just because of them being like the adults having no time for the kids, and them just being sent away, and the kids kind of becoming like the detectives, if you like. But that's one thing I thought that the kids could become a bit grating at times. The other thing, as I said, I think 54 minutes, if this is going to be something where it's a standalone story each time, that could be a bit long and drawn out. Now, I did read kind of a piece on it today in like the Guardian guide from the weekend, where it was very critical, because it just said that it like condensed like about 5 or 7 minutes of the plot into like nearly an hour, and that it was just very long and drawn out and very little to the characters. And it did mention it being a bit derivative of certain things. Now again, because I really like the style of this opening episode and there was intrigue, then I can kind of get around that for the time being, but that could be a problem if it keeps up. I think depending on how good the story is, or how engrossed you are in like the world, the universe of the show, then making it nearly an hour per episode could be quite sort of trying. And I think also in this one, there's kind of a lot of like riddles. The dialogue is kind of delivered in that way, with a lot of questions, and so quite like kind of it just comes off as like a lot of riddles. And so sometimes that, if that goes on and it's all about like the mystery, now this is explained at the end, but if you get a lot of that sort of stuff over the course of 8 episodes, I think that can become quite sort of grating as well. But because, as I said, the style was so good, you've got a decent cast, you've got intrigue, I was certainly willing to let it slide for this first episode. I think, yeah, it's certainly showing its art house credentials, I should say, and it actually does that near the beginning, because obviously they're in this small town, and in one of the first scenes when the girl's like walking down the street, it cuts to the shot at the cinema. Now I think this must be set in like the 70s or 80s, because the look of the town has that kind of old fashioned look, and I noticed that the Rebecca Hall's character, her computer was like one of the really old computers. So again, it's a period piece, which these things tend to be nowadays. But I just mentioned the cinema because I noticed the film they were showing was Summer with Monaluke, or Monica, which is an Ingmar Bergman film. And it's one of his best films, actually, I think, certainly from the ones I've seen. But that just feels like the show really showing off its like art house credentials, because I think a lot of these type of shows have that nostalgia where they all show like they'll get a pop culture reference in, and they'll have a certain film at the cinema showing, but normally it is something a bit more mainstream than Summer at Monaluke. So kind of props for that, I have to say. But before I get into the reveal and the twist and what kind of happens at the end, I'll just say I do think, as I said, the style in this is really beautiful and dreamlike and cinematic. It kind of has like a Michel Gondry style feel, where it has like this magic sort of realism coming on, like mixed with like surrealism. And because it's set in like this town where it's sort of at winter and there's a lot of snow and woodland, I think that had just the way certain like images and uses of weather was captured felt a lot like Michel Gondry. So you get these shots of like the iceberg cracking and falling to the ground. There's a beautiful like drifting type camera shot where at one point Loretta comes home when she's searching for her mother, and she just sees like bits of the house just mysteriously drifting off into the air, and you see like specks of snow. So just the setting and the way things are framed, and like really kind of like rich, lush sort of like color schemes and framings of the shots, and just really gentle drifting like effects. There's some beautiful like dissolve type moments, like transitioning shots, where you see like in one point a shot where you have the Rebecca Hall character, and it's part of the reveal, but that sort of transitions into a drifting shot of Loretta running through the forests. So there's really a lot of thought put into the direction and visuals. It's a very cinematic looking show. The music and the atmosphere is very interesting, because it has that bits of it has like, I guess, a noir type sound, which kind of goes to the mystery, but also it has a very ambient kind of sci-fi bizarre type sound, and it's definitely trying to capture some of the spirit of like the Twilight Zone or that sort of show. but I think trying to do its own thing. As I said, this does feel kind of like an art house auteur type series, if you like, which just happens to be in parts and on TV. But anyway, I'll talk about the twist and the reveal because at one point, and I think this is an example of like the mystery and the dialogue at times sounding a bit maybe forced and sort of like Christmas crackly, where the kids go to like the mother's workplace, as in Loretta's mother, and they ask the security guard, say, you know, she's lost her mother, and tells her name's Loretta, and the security guard says, sorry, but there's no one working here called then. And Loretta just gets mad and like storms off. And before she does, the security guard just says, so we're in spoilers now, I should have said that, but the security guard says, I'm sorry, I'm just trying to help you. And it's that sort of line in the delivery that kind of suggests that he knows a bit more than he's actually letting on. So it's almost like a cryptic sort of message. Because then he phones the Rebecca Hall character and he makes a point of saying, the girl was here, her name's Loretta. And so the reveal is that they have the same name. Rebecca Hall's character is also called Loretta. And that's the reveal. Then she is the older version of the girl. And so you have the two worlds coming together. And finally, older Loretta catches up with younger Loretta. And it all gets a little bit bizarre because, of course, Loretta, as in the older version, has two sons. And that essentially is her sons, as in the younger Loretta. In the future, that's her son. So that's one of these odd like Back to the Future type moments with the past kind of meeting the future, but actually interacting with her future sons in a way. So yeah, kind of this quirky sort of detail. But again, the scene where she talks to Loretta, the younger version, and takes her through it is again very kind of powerful and engaging. And Rebecca Hall is so good in these scenes. Because in a way she's not given too much to do, but she just grounds it really well. And you can tell that she's like this really ambitious, really passionate sort of person. But yeah, she's very good, as she always is. And she explains to younger Loretta then her mother disappeared underground, like to the loop, and reassures her it wasn't her fault, didn't do anything wrong, but says then, see, this is the confusing part, but says I experimented for years with, because she's got like the bit that the mother had from the loop. And I experimented for years with it and tried to find answers, but I never did. So it's warning her that she'll never find answers. And obviously they kind of have to go their separate ways. Younger Loretta has to go back to the present, if you like, which is above ground, and they've divided the past and the present. well, past and future in a way. So future's underground where the loop is. So we see the loop itself, this big like mechanical thing with all these like little kind of like objects in it. And so younger Loretta has to return the device, the part of the loop, to the overall loop. And that's so that she can return back to the present time, her present, that is. And that's kind of it. It's all very kind of melancholic, but yeah, Rebecca Hall's Loretta assures her then everything's going to be fine, that you're going to have like these two boys and you're going to have a good life. But she obviously has to be honest and say you're not going to find answers, and unfortunately Mum never comes back. She's just lost forever. And it's almost suggests at some point then it could be a dream as well, because the mystery hasn't been cracked about exactly what it is and what it does. But anyway, I'm sort of reasonably sure they're going to get more into the basics and the details of the loop as we go along. And we see the Jonathan Pryce character once more. He's standing there after younger Loretta has gone, and he sort of has this quite kind of like judgmental look on his face. But Rebecca Hall's character just says, "Can we talk about this tomorrow or something?" And he agrees to this, like, well, whenever. And that's it. That's the episode. So as I said, a pretty strong episode, and I'll stick with it and see what I think. As I said, it could go either way. I think if every episode is in this style, it could start getting a bit tedious. But with it being the first one, I think the style was working for me anyway. Obviously, I'm not too sure who else is going to be cast in the coming episode, so we'll see how they work out. But that's my review of the pilot episode of Loop. I suppose streaming service don't really have pilots, but the first episode anyway. If you've seen it, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Like and subscribe if you are new to the channel and you want more content like this. And get me up on Twitter. I'll put the link in the description. And yeah, that's it for now, but I'll see you guys with more new TV reviews and film reviews coming up soon. See you guys soon. Goodbye.